Welcome back to Shadow Wars. On September 16, 2007, in the heart of Baghdad, 4 armored vehicles from a private military convoy pulled into Nisar Square, a busy intersection in broad daylight. They weren't US soldiers. They weren't Iraqi police. They were contractors. Mercenaries. Blackwater, USA, officially hired by the US State Department to protect diplomats. Blackwater operated with near total freedom in Iraq. Above Iraqi law. Outside US military command, and armed with military-grade firepower. That day, they claimed to be responding to a potential threat. What happened next was chaos. According to multiple witnesses, Blackwater operatives opened fire on a white Kia sedan, suspecting it of being a car bomb. No explosives were found. Inside was a young Iraqi medical student and his mother. Both were killed instantly. But the shooting didn't stop. For 15 minutes, the contractors sprayed bullets into the intersection. Cars caught fire. Pedestrians were gunned down as they ran. Mothers screamed. Traffic froze. By the time it ended, 17 civilians were dead. Men, women, children, all unarmed. All killed by Americans who weren't even soldiers. The State Department quickly issued a statement. The contractors acted appropriately under threat, but survivors told a different story. Iraqi police at the scene reported no incoming fire. Journalists uncovered evidence that Blackwater initiated the attack. Even the FBI called it a criminal act, unjustified and out of control. So who were these men? Blackwater wasn't just a security firm. It was an army for hire, founded by Eric Prince, a former Navy SEAL with deep political ties. By 2007, Blackwater had secured over $1 billion in U.S. government contracts. Their operations spanned from convoy protection to counterterrorism to intelligence gathering. And the key to their power, they operated in a legal gray zone. Under Order 17, signed by the US-led Coalition Provisional Authority, private contractors in Iraq were immune from local prosecution. They could kill with impunity. And in many cases, they did. In the next chapter, we'll follow what happened after Nisar Square. The cover-up, the lawsuits, the international outrage, and the US government's quiet protection of one of the most dangerous mercenary groups in modern warfare. Because when you outsource war to profit-driven guns, you lose more than control, you lose your soul. In the hours after the Nisar Square massacre, Baghdad erupted in outrage. Iraqi officials demanded justice. Newspapers ran headlines calling it cold-blooded murder. And us diplomats scrambled to contain the fallout. But there was a problem. The men who pulled the trigger, the Blackwater contractors, were not under Iraqi law. They were protected by a legal shield signed by the US Occupation Authority. Order 17. A decree that gave private contractors full immunity from prosecution inside Iraq. Let that sink in. 17 civilians killed in the middle of a capital city. And no one could be arrested. Iraq's government called it an insult to sovereignty. They wanted Blackwater banned immediately. Instead, the US State Department quietly evacuated the shooters from the country. No questions asked. Then came the spin. Blackwater insisted their men had been ambushed. The White House called the incident regrettable. But behind closed doors, the mission was clear. Minimize the damage. Protect the contract. At that point, Blackwater was making hundreds of millions of dollars off US taxpayers guarding embassies, escorting diplomats, even flying covert CIA missions. They weren't just hired guns. They were deeply embedded in the post-9/11's war machine, and they had friends in high places. Founder Eric Prince, a billionaire with deep Republican ties, was the brother of Betsy D. Later Trump's Secretary of Education. He had connections in the CIA, the Pentagon, and Capitol Hill. So while Iraq demanded accountability, Washington stalled. Internal investigations were launched, but kept classified. Reports leaked, showing the FBI found no evidence of hostile fire from Iraqis that day. Yet no one was indicted for months. And when the Justice Department finally filed charges in the U.S., they bungled the case. Key evidence was ruled inadmissible. Prosecutors relied on coerced statements. In 2009, the case collapsed. The contractors walked free. Public trust eroded. International allies were stunned. How could the U.S. claim to export democracy while shielding paid killers from even the most basic consequences? The Obama administration refiled the charges. Years later, 4 Blackwater operatives were convicted, but only after a political and legal nightmare. And the message had already been sent. If you're a private contractor in a U.S. war zone, the rules don't apply. In the next chapter, we'll uncover how Blackwater didn't die after Nicer Square. It rebranded, reshaped, and quietly returned under new names. Because when war becomes business, scandal is just another cost of doing operations. The name Blackwater should have been buried in disgrace after Nicer Square. But it wasn't. Instead, the company simply changed its name. First to Z Services, then to Academy. It merged, restructured, and rebranded. But the personnel, contracts, and influence remained intact. By the time the public outrage faded, Blackwater's legacy had already taken root. Private military firms were no longer controversial. They were standard operating procedure. In Iraq and Afghanistan, thousands of contractors, many former Blackwater, continued to guard diplomats, train foreign troops, and fly covert missions. Why? Because they were cheaper than soldiers, outside military law, and politically invisible. When U.S. troops died, headlines followed. When contractors died, they were listed as civilians. No public outcry, no press conferences, no accountability. By 2020, over half of all U.S. personnel in combat zones were contractors. And the man who built Blackwater, he never faced charges. Eric Prince stepped deeper into the shadows. He worked with the CIA. He advised the Trump administration on creating a private spy network. He pitched a plan to privatize the war in Afghanistan, arguing that contractors could do the job better, faster, and without the mess of military oversight. And across the globe, others followed the model. Russia's Wagner Group, Turkey's Sadat, China's corporate security advisors in Africa. Blackwater didn't just change how America fought its wars. It changed who fought them, and who answered for what they did. Because private war isn't just unaccountable, it's profitable. No messy rules of engagement, no Geneva Convention, just contracts, paychecks, and mission results. Even when civilians die, even when entire villages burned, and the public, distracted, exhausted. The U.S. government promised reforms after Nicer Square. Some oversight was added, but the system, the money, stayed intact. Today, military contractors operate in over 80 countries, many under government contracts, others for oil companies, NGOs, or authoritarian regimes. Their uniforms bear no flag. Their weapons come with NDAs. Their rules are written in fine print. And when they go rogue, history suggests they'll just change their name and bid for the next contract. Thank you for watching Shadow Wars. If this story opened your eyes, it was meant to, because the future of warfare isn't boots on the ground, it's boadies off the books. Subscribe to uncover the wars they don't want on record. Because once violence becomes a service, there's always another client.